DubbieDubbie crew, it's me, John, and it's Grace.
Hey!
You know what, for the introduction for this video here, this is Talk Magic to Me, first video of a new series that we have. Grace, what's the series about?
So this series is about just the basics, learning how to play Magic, and where I'm a beginner and I have the luxury of having John here to help explain it to me, we figured that we would take you along for my journey of learning how to play Magic from pretty much bare bones. And that means from the very beginning, phases of a turn. That's what we're here to talk about today, right?
Phases of a turn. That we're going to jump right in with something that's nice and straightforward with it. It can seem really complicated to have to do phases of a turn, but here's the good news. There are only 5 of them. You know these 5 phases, you know how every turn is going to go down, and soon you'll be doing it just like that. Nice and quick. Quick.
Oh dear.
Quick.
I'm a little nervous.
Let's jump right in.
Okay.
Start with the first phase. It is the beginning phase.
John, what happens in the beginning phase?
In the beginning phase, if you're drawing a card for turn, which you probably are, you're going to be drawing a card.
Okay.
You also have something called the upkeep step. We're not going to go into that today. That's a bit more of a future lesson for it. For now, we're just going to cover that. You should look forward to it. It's exciting.
Draw a card and upkeep.
You've got some upkeep as well. Basically what happens is you start your turn, you draw a card, and you decide if you're doing something in the beginning phase. The only thing you can do in the beginning phase is an instant. It would have to be something that's faster than a sorcery or a creature.
Okay.
If you decide you're not doing something, you tell your opponent, I don't have something, you pass priority over to your opponent will probably say, I don't have something to do yet either, and then you move to the second phase.
So that would be number 2. What is that?
Number 2, and that is your first main phase. First main phase is kind of where the game has really gotten started for you. In a main phase, you could cast creatures, you could cast artifacts, you could cast sorceries, you could also cast instants or anything like that. This is when you can cast most of your cards. Of course, you've got to have mana to be able to cast them, you've got to have the requirements necessary for it, but if you have all of those requirements, this is your first chance to be able to do it.
Cool.
Same thing in the first main phase, and this is true for all the phases. When you've decided you've done everything that you're doing, then you pass priority over to your opponent. Your opponent says, I'm not doing anything. You go off, you do what you need to do, and you're going to move to the next phase.
Okay, so after your opponent can respond,
Yep.
you move to number 3, which would be...
Number 3 is the combat phase.
Okay.
This is where we start fighting.
That makes sense. So what does that really mean in terms of gameplay? Combat phase.
So for the combat phase, if it's your turn, which in this example it is, you're going to decide if you have creatures that can attack, are you going to attack with them?
Okay, so this is your attack phase.
This is your attack phase. You will start the combat phase by saying, I'm going to attack with creatures, or by not. If you're not attacking with creatures, you kind of declare that you're not attacking too. You declare that you're attacking. If your opponent has the ability to block, you are then going to have your opponent say, I'm blocking, and they're deciding which creatures they're blocking, if any.
Or not. Okay. Makes sense. So then what happens after that? What happens number 4?
After that, we have all of those creatures decide to smash into each other. They kill each other in inventive ways. A bunch of math happens. If creatures have lived, it's determined that they've lived. If they haven't lived, it's determined that they've died. Whatever happens, happens. When we've all decided that the smoke has cleared from the combat phase, you move to the second main phase.
How is that different from the first main phase?
That's a great question. It's not really different from the first main phase.
Okay.
There are maybe a dozen cards out of the 30,000 some odd cards that have been created in Magic so far that care about which main phase. For the most part, all of those cards that would care about the second main phase as opposed to the first main phase or vice versa, those are corner cases. Okay. Otherwise, this main phase is exactly the same as the first main phase.
So cast creatures and opponent can respond?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Exactly the same.
So we'll just put repeat first main phase here.
That is true 99% of the time, and that's all you need to aim for now.
So what happens next?
Next, we go into the last, the 5th and final phase, which is the ending phase. This is similar to the beginning phase. You don't draw a card unless you have a card that tells you to draw a card in the ending phase. The most important thing to keep in mind for the ending phase is if you have a spell that said it lasted until the end of turn, for example, this is the end of the turn that we're talking about.
This is where any spell that lasts until the end of turn does its thing? ends.
That's when these spells end.
So then you would kind of just hand it over to the other player?
That's what you would do. You hand it over to the other player, and where do you think they're going to start?
At their beginning phase.
You got it. And it continues that way until one of you is dead.
Fair enough. All right, so opponent's beginning phase, okay? That's handy and helpful. I actually look forward to being able to kind of poke and find out a little bit more about all of those phases and kind of understand the stats, but I think that kind of clarifies it a lot for me, especially when I'm watching other people play, so...
But how about for you guys? If this helped clarify something, if you learned something new, I'd love to hear about it. If this isn't what you were looking for, I'd love to hear that too. What are you looking to learn about? We can go over it.
That's what this series is all about. We want to talk about how the game of Magic works so you can understand from the beginning, no judgment. You're a beginner too, I'm a beginner. You can watch us
learn and explore together.
Yeah, exactly. Come on the Magic journey.
So why don't we go see if we can play and put this into phases now, and until next time, when we get a chance to talk Magic to you again, we'll see you next time, everyone.
Bye!